Welcome back to The Spark with your host Jay, and I'm sat here with the amazing Sham. We're going to be chatting to him about what he does and his creative process. Let's get into it.
Yeah, man. My name's Sham Ismail. Firstly, I'd actually like to thank you and Rob for bringing me on, man. I think it's very important to have a platform like this and have people just share their experiences. But yeah, no, I'm a filmmaker who primarily started off as a designer. I worked for PwC for a year and a bit, and man, I think I just fell out of love with not design necessarily, but just like the repetitiveness of being in a 9-to-5. And then I had a few freelance gigs whilst I was working full-time as a filmmaker, and that sort of led me to where I am today, which is a full-time filmmaker that works primarily within the NGO space.
Thank you, Sham. Really kind of you to say that, and yeah, I'm glad that you appreciate what we're trying to do with this. There's so much in that you just said. So being a designer and obviously starting in that and having that 9-to-5 grind, what was your route out of it? Because I know that many people that we've spoken to always talk about that realization where they're sat at the desk or where they're sat at the till and they're like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go for it. So what was that process like for you?
Yeah, man, I think with any creative, you can't really restrict them too much. And that's what I felt like was happening to me. I just felt like I had so much more to sort of learn about myself as a creative, and just being a designer didn't allow me to have that creative outlet. But for me, honestly, it was just it was so impulsive, and I'm a very impulsive guy. And it's a bad thing and a good thing, but I just honestly, one day I was like, do I actually even really like being here? And although my team were amazing, my manager was one of those guys that really helped develop me as a designer. And I actually say that he was my university experience was nothing compared to what I learned with this guy. And so it's pretty mad, and so I was learning so much, and then all of a sudden I was just I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And I handed in my resignation literally within I had the thought, and then within the next day I was like, yo, I'm leaving.
I always feel with creative journeys, those are the moments that test whether you really want to go for your dream or not. I think that the fact that even you had that thought and it went from thought to confirmed decision in 24 hours is really interesting. So with that, and obviously you starting with your background in design, what was the transition then to filmmaking? Was that something that you always kind of messed around with, or did you then leave and then go in that direction?
Honestly, I really didn't know much about the filmmaking space. I had a friend who was working for BBC at the time, and he'd tell me a little bit about his process. He was mainly an editor, and I kind of really sort of took an interest in that sort of area. And so I was an editor first before I became someone on the actual camera as a DOP. But it was it was honestly through other people's experiences that led me to become a filmmaker. And if I like something and I really want to try and achieve something in that space, I'll put in the work, I'll put in the overtime to make sure that I get to a level that I'm not happy with, but I feel I get this, I can move on with this. And I think even now, as a travel filmmaker, that is an NGO / travel filmmaker, because those are the two sort of spaces that I'm in. But yeah, man, it's I feel like I'm still not at the level that I want to be at, but I'm there and I'm trying to make an impact still, man.
One thing that I really loved about your visuals is just your eye, your framing, your composition. It's so tasteful, particularly with landscapes where it's hard to get really interesting composition and capture really interesting moments. What was the process in terms of developing your eye? How long did it take you to find your vision through the lens of film?
So yeah, I think after, again, when I left PwC, I knew that I can't be on this journey on my own. I had to learn to reach out to people because the power of collaboration is key when you want to develop a talent, man, or you know, get somewhere, especially in the creative field. That's what I believe anyway. And you know, there's a few people that really helped me on that journey. And one particular trip that I have in mind is I went to Paris with a filmmaker that I'm very good friends with even now. And he sort of taught me a lot of like the sort of side of like camera movements and all of that. And that was one thing. And then I think another thing is just that it was my first sort of creative trip with other people that were in that industry. And it just allowed me to see other perspectives and a sort of way of working that other people worked, if that makes sense. And I think you sort of learn and adapt very quickly when you're with other people. But yeah, that was my main sort of first trip away.
So obviously post Paris, you've just gone to Paris, you've had this amazing time, you've come back and you're really invigorated and you've decided that, you know, you're really interested in film. What was the moment that sparked, that allowed you to actually click and build your own client base within film? Like, how did that happen?
You know, it's funny, man, because like I had a little bit of savings, like, and this was going back 2018, right? This is when I quit PwC as a designer. And I thought, you know, like before I even sort of try and decide where I want to go, I need to sort of find myself. So I went on a few trips abroad with like a few friends. I went on a few trips solo because I think, you know, traveling is the best form of education for growth. I think, you know, if you really want to grow, like because you're put in certain positions and you're put in certain sort of environments that you're not used to. So, you know, whereas, you know, we wake up every day and we somewhat do the same things every single day. And so I knew that I wanted to travel because that just allowed me to sort of clear up my head a little bit. But then after that trip, I just found myself like, I was like, oh my God, like I'm running out of money. Like, do I just go back to being a designer again? And you know what's funny? I actually applied for jobs as a designer again. And I was like, cause I was scared, man. Cause like, you know, you're not really sure of like what the future holds. Like I'm a new kid on the block with a camera that I don't really understand. You know, I'm just trying to make it work and I'm running out of cash. So what do I do? So 2018, 2019, mid 2019 was just a year of just pure learning for me. And I didn't really have clients, to be honest. I'll be honest with you, like I didn't really have clients. Like it was just a very lonely sort of journey, and the only people that I could sort of confide in was like the people around me, like my friends, and they were the people that were like, you know what, just carry on going, just see what you've got. Some people even said just go and get a job, but that's just like such a common sort of answer that people can give you. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, and then from there, I just sort of kept working on like becoming a better filmmaker, better editor, and I landed my first sort of NGO gig, which was in Gambia.
Those first checks that you get, or that first payment you get, is often kind of like the spark, isn't it? It's like, I know I can get paid for this now.
Yeah. And oftentimes it's honestly just like a mental block within your own head. Like it's a barrier that you have to sort of, you know, jump, or you have to sort of get past. Because there's a lot of people, man, that are super talented, man, and they're just sort of comfortable being in a space that they're used to. And yeah, man, I think, and one thing that I understood about myself is that you know, in order for me to grow, I have to be in a position where I'm not comfortable. After Gambia, things just sort of started picking up.
That's mad. So one of the pieces that I really loved on your online profiles was the film about Pakistan. Like just seeing like the way you captured the amazing landscapes and how you showed like the rich cultural heritage of this place that we only necessarily see as one-dimensional because of the interpretation in the media. Like it was just really powerful. So I want you to just tell us about that and how it was making that film for you. So
obviously me being from Pakistani heritage, like I think it's very important. It was very important for me to go back to this piece of land. And honestly, like growing up as a British Pakistani, like I wasn't comfortable repping my own sort of culture. and honestly, and I think a lot of like people from the diaspora can probably relate, just because, you know, you just, I felt like if I repped it, then I don't fit in anywhere. Do you know what I mean? And so for the longest time, you know, I sort of parted ways with this sort of identity that I had, and I was just, you know, a brown kid that's British. Do you know what I mean? And it was only up until like a couple of years ago that I went back and I was like, wait, this land has so much to offer. Like, you know, it has an art scene, it has, you know, nature to explore, it has just so much that I never knew that this country had. And that when I went back, I think it was in 2019 actually, I was like, yo, I need to spend more time out here. And I started picking up some NGO work in Pakistan, because I was like, okay, I can finish off the work and then spend some time here and learn more about the land. But honestly, that video that I did was, it was motivated by changing the preconceptions people had of a piece of land, because, you know, all we ever hear of like these countries is sort of negative. Like, you know, the media is sort of biased in that sense, where it only pushes out a certain narrative that they want to push out. And I think, you know, being from there, I really wanted to change that. And so that's why I went back and I was like, you know, I wanna have, you know, somewhat of an impact for myself to people like me, right? That people that don't really identify as, you know, as a British Pakistani, right? Because, you know, there's a lot of like, especially like in Manchester, London area, there's a lot of like British Pakistanis that, you know, have never really explored the land apart from like maybe their home village, or they've probably gone back once every 10 years or whatever. And the video is done in such a style where it's like, it's a travel video. And I was honestly blessed to have an opportunity for it to be featured in Beautiful Destinations, which is the largest travel platform online at the moment. And I remember having a conversation with Tom Johnsey is the founder of Beautiful Destinations. And, you know, we just had a very quick conversation, nothing as sort of detailed as this, but, you know, it was just more of like, look, you guys go and document beautiful destinations, like, let me show you what Pakistan has to offer. Yeah, like, no one knows that 5 of the top 14 peaks of the world are in Pakistan, 3 of the largest mountain ranges converge in Pakistan, like nowhere else in the world. And like, but no one knows that. And so that really sort of played on my head, and I was like, yo, I want to go and document this. And so that's where it started, man. And that's where, and it was based pure on passion, man. Like, I wasn't paid for it. It wasn't paid. It wasn't something that, you know, I was gaining anything from. It was just more like, yo, I really want to have an impact, man.
So interesting, like, because one thing that really interests me, and obviously me and Rob have spoke about this, is just generally representation within the film industry. Like, from our experience, like, we've not really seen, well, we're starting to see now more like brothers and sisters of the diaspora getting into this. Like, is there much of a Pakistani community within the film industry?
I mean, you know, there's people making waves within the film industry. And, you know, one person that I think is killing it at the moment is Riz Ahmed, you know, with his sort of, I mean, he recently just won an Oscar for The Long Goodbye. And there's people on the come up for sure. But I think, you know what it is? It's like when a son of an immigrant decides to pursue something that doesn't have too much security, like, how can, you know, it's that dialogue that you have to have with like your parents and like the concerns that they have. But I think it's changing. I think it's changing now. I think, you know, now 3rd generation in, you know, after people have moved from like their homelands and stuff, where they're in a new place, people are a bit more secure. People have a bit more sort of direction in where they want to go. And I think people are allowing their sons and daughters to be in this creative space, because it's important, man, because story is, is the fastest way to communicate any message. We're living in a very over-communicated society. We're inundated with around 60 billion messages a day. So how do we filter and cut through that noise? And story is the fastest way to do that, because it's a sense-making mechanism. It makes sense in our heads. And, you know, and that's why, again, that's another thing that I thought about when I was getting into this space. It was like, I just want to tell stories, interesting stories, right, that but people can relate to.
So I just want to kind of circle back, because we've spoken a lot about your work with NGOs, but I've not actually asked you what inspired you to go and work within that sector, because I think that would be interesting.
Yeah. I've always wanted to make an impact, in a positive impact in whichever way I can. I don't know, it's just always been a part of me. But also I think I've fallen out of love with getting paid for a project where your values don't necessarily completely align as such.
I think that's really interesting, because that's been something that's been consistent through your journey, is like your values, moral compass outweighs opportunities that you would commit to. The fact that you left that job because you knew it wasn't serving you anymore. Yeah. The fact that you went to Paris and were brave enough to kind of do that. So it makes sense in terms of the person that you are.
Yeah. Man, I've learned so much about myself being on this thing, man. Yeah, I feel like this has worked as an echo chamber, man.
It's really cool, like, just hearing from your journey. I'm learning so much as well, bro. Like, so firstly, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us before I get into some of the final questions. Like, honestly, this has been one of my favorite interviews that we've done.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you, man.
So much knowledge given. So it wouldn't be a spark if I didn't ask you for 3 gems of advice that you wish you knew earlier in your career.
Learn to say no to opportunities that may arise that don't fit right with you, because you just get caught up in things that you just don't want to be doing, and it costs. Not like a physical cost, but the cost of your time, the cost of your mental health, the cost of, like, you know, you learning, you know. And I just think if I knew that earlier, man, I feel like I'd be, although I feel like I'm heading in a space where I'm somewhat happy, but I feel like I would have been there a little bit earlier. So the second one that I want to talk about is just surrounding yourself with people that you can vibe with, and be in a place where egos are sort of left at the door and you can grow together. Because I feel like on my journey, you know, there was a lot of times where, and especially in the creative space, it can be very toxic, man. And everyone's just trying to outdo each other, everyone's trying to outshine each other. But I think, you know, be sort of generous with, like, the time that you have and the knowledge that the value that you have, and the knowledge that you have, because the value that you give is far more important, and you can grow together. Yeah, literally just be mindful of the people that you spend your time with. And pick your circle wisely, man, because they're either going to help you elevate or just leave you in the dumps, innit? That's basically it.
Yeah. Bars. Thank you so much, Sham. So this has been another episode of The Spark. We've been joined by the amazing Sham. If you've enjoyed the content, make sure you give us a little comment below. Make sure that you share, like, subscribe, all of that. This has been The Spark with Calling Real People. Keep it locked. Bless up.